Welcome to my villa in Bali. I'm going to be sharing in this video why, out of all places, after making $25 million, did I choose to relocate here. Now, every city we live in trains us for the next season we're in. And in this video, I'm gonna reveal the 3 cities I lived in previously, the one city that helped me make my $25 million and why it was paramount that I was there during that time. And I'm gonna share my cost of living and how things have shifted here, being in Bali and what brought me here. All right, so let's have a seat on the sofa inside and let's talk. So the first reason I moved to Bali, I asked myself this question: what season am I in? And what is the next frontier? So I got a 6-minute voice note from my best friend, Sean. We love to send mini podcast episodes around here. And he said, Danny, you're always leading us. You're always on the next frontier. And that really made me think. And I thought about the fact that I believe the next frontier is well-being. COVID was a huge reminder that it doesn't matter how much money you have if you don't have your health. So the first season I was in was the building season, and I wanted to be inspired by innovation, and I lived in San Francisco. So I went to UC Berkeley and I moved there, and I was at the heart of startups, and that's where I launched my first startup, co-founded it with 2 other ladies, Ari and Virgilia. We raised money, we got into an accelerator program, and then I got into online education, and I launched my first course in 2012. Now, the next city I moved to was New York. To me, New York represents like the gritty hustle. And so it was in New York that I was able to lock in. I moved into the 52nd floor of this beautiful luxury apartment. I had a view of the vessel, Hudson Yards, the Hudson River, and even the Statue of Liberty. And this was my place to lock in and grind. Like, I got to work. And that's when I was able to tap into the $1 million Danielle. And I crossed 1 million, and then I crossed 10 million, and then I crossed 20 million in a short period of time, because the city lended to that kind of hustle. Now, the 3rd city I moved to was back home to LA. So Los Angeles to me represents peace. When I get off that plane in LAX, I feel a sense of calm and a sense of home. It's where my community is, my family and friends, and I knew I needed that in that season. And that's when, lo and behold, I had the benign breast tumor, and I was able to recover quickly from it because I was in a place of peace. And so when it was time for this next chapter, I said, I'm ready to re-identify. I want to create again. I want to go somewhere where I can do deep work and prioritize my well-being. And when I think of a city that embodies well-being, which I believe is the next frontier, it is Bali. So what season are you in? Every city represents something. Think about the book Eat, Pray, Love. Eat represents Italy, pray represents India, and love represents Indonesia, or Bali. So for me, San Francisco was innovation, New York was hustle, LA was peace, and Bali is well-being. If you're thinking about relocating, I want you to identify one word that embodies the season, and when you are thinking through cities, use that as a filter. Does this city support that season? And then think about the next frontier that you're excited about. So for instance, are you excited about the future of money and work? So maybe you're into Bitcoin and investing and being a digital nomad. You would think about places that are lending to that culture. Or you might be also interested, like me, in the future of well-being and health and holistic wellness. So you'll think about places that help mirror that back to you. Because as you've probably seen, longevity and biohacking is a booming industry. And I have attended a biohacking retreat, a Joe Dispenza retreat, and a plant medicine retreat. So let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video on those and what I've learned about biohacking and longevity from that. Now, you might be interested in the future of tech, so AI and automation, or you might be interested in the future of psychology and therapy. So just think about, what next frontier are you most excited about? What kind of community of people do you want to be with, and what surroundings do you want to be in to help reinforce that? So if you're thinking about Bali, it is definitely the epicenter of wellness. I mean, I can see 3 different gyms from my villa. You have a view of the rice paddies everywhere you go. My place is a 7-minute scooter ride to the beach. You have access to water, and you have access to Ubud, which is about an hour away, and that's where we have healers and access to ancient healing practices. When you walk out here, everyone is obsessed with fitness. And there are also people who are from here, the Balinese people, who are really into holistic health. So this was the place for me to come. Now, the second reason I moved to Bali was to lower my cost of living. When I was living in New York, all right, in that high-rise apartment, I was paying $9,000 a month in rent. And then I moved to a place in Brooklyn Bridge Parkway, which is gorgeous and huge, and I was paying $16,000 per month to live there. And then when I moved to Los Angeles, I was in another luxury high-rise and was paying $6,000 a month. So by coming to Bali, I'm able to be in a villa that is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. I have my own private pool. I have a balcony, a deck, a roof deck where I have a view of the rice paddies, and I'm a 7-minute scooter ride to the beach. And the weather is gorgeous almost every day, pretty much every day. I even love it when it rains for like 5 minutes. So that really helps me lower my cost of living, right? Like just knocking half off the rent up front. In addition to your living expenses, transportation is really cheap. So I can take a scooter ride, which is the equivalent of an Uber, for an hour and only pay $3, which is wild. I can pay just $40 to get a manicure or to get my lashes done, and the food is cheaper as well. And I can also get a personal trainer that's just $19 an hour. When I arrived in Bali, I took it a step further. I got in action about lowering my cost of living. So as I mentioned, my burn rate was high, and so I hired a money coach and I worked with her over 60 days to cut my monthly expenses in half. So imagine if you were able to look at your expenses and ask, how can I eliminate or recreate things here to cut them in half? How much more time and creative freedom would you have? The last piece is that Bali is on a lot of people's bucket list. So since being here, I've been able to have friends and family come to me. So I haven't needed to pay to go and travel to them. So in just the 4 months I've been here, I've already been visited by 3 friends, shout out to them, and I have 2 more friends and family members who are coming this month. So this location has been great to lend to the fact that I don't feel the pressure to build community right away because I have community coming to see me. And that means I can be less distracted. I'm not distracted by friends constantly hitting me up during the day. Let's get this, let's get that. Also, the time difference is massive between here and the States. So I'm able to focus during the day, and it's only the first couple of hours and the last couple of hours of the day where my time zone coincides with back home. So I'm able to batch my social time, which helps so much. I've been able to get so much creative and deep work done and focus on my well-being. Now, the third reason I moved to Bali is because I asked myself this question: what would my 25-year-old self do? All right, so you're like, well, what are you talking about, Danielle? So every time I enter a new season, I identify an identity that is already living that. So for instance, when I was in New York and my goal was to make $1 million, I asked myself, okay, what would 7-figure Dani do? And I created a profile of what her evenings looked like, her mornings looked like, who she hung out with, how she spent her time, how she delegated, and I was able to grow my business. During that time, I locked in and I got dedicated to working out every morning. I hired a health and wellness coach. I sent him accountability texts. I showed him, I got up at 7 a.m. I did my intermittent running on the treadmill for 20 minutes. I had my green smoothie. I meditated for 7 minutes because I was a baby meditator back then, but it meant the world. I wrote down my scripting for the day. So I would write down the 3 words I want to embody that day and how I would show up on my meetings as a good leader. I got into the practice of delegating. So I did a energy and time audit, and I said, these are the $10 activities, $100 activities, and $1,000 activities. And I started delegating the $10 activities, like my email inbox management, my customer support, the $100 activities, like writing emails, I started hiring out for, and the $1,000 activities, such as doing my webinars, I was able to focus on. So during that season, I had more capital to invest. And so I got in a program where I was able to hone my webinar. And I said, 7-figure Dani would do this live webinar every Wednesday, rain or shine. And so that's how I was able to grow to $1 million and then quickly 10 million and 20 million. It was because I said, what would 7-figure Dani do? She would do this webinar every single week. So I want you to think about, what is that identity for your season now? Now, after that, I started getting burnt out. I was tired of having all these meetings I was in every week. And so the next identity was, what would 10-hour work week Dani do? So as someone with a multi-7-figure business, the CEO, how can I reduce my work hours from, I think I was at like 60 or 70 hours a week at that time, because I didn't have the right mentality or the capacity to allow others to give, right? So I was able to unlearn that. And I went back to that time and energy audit, and I figured out what I could get rid of. And so in just 3 months, I reduced my work week from 50, 60, 70 hours to just 10 hours a week. That's the power of choosing an identity. Now, when I moved back to LA, this was my season of peace. And I said, I am ready to write my book. This is the perfect place to do it. Like, LA feels like a warm hug to me. And so I said, the identity is wise, sage Dani. When I was writing my book, I wanted to channel 80 or 100-year-old Dani that had the wisdom and the lessons to infuse into the pages of that book. And so I did things like I went to the $1 Million Author Retreat that was put on by my friend Rachel Rogers. I took the time in my place to look at the views and have 2 hours where I was writing every day. I did things that inspired me, right? And then the next identity was 25-year-old Dani. So I want to tell you what inspired this 25-year-old Dani identity. So I was watching this series on Netflix, and it's called Younger. And it's about this woman who is 40 years old. She got divorced. She has a daughter who's in her college years, and she is starting over. She has no money because her ex-husband gambled it all away. And so she moves into the apartment of her friend Maggie. And so here she is as a 40-year-old, and she's like, what am I doing living with my friend? It's giving Golden Girls, you feel me? But what she did is she went and she applied for jobs, and she used to work in the book publishing industry. So as she was applying for jobs, she was getting discriminated against because she was out of the workforce for about 15 to 20 years. Even though she had a lot of experience, they wanted someone who was in their 20s. And so someone at a bar she was talking to, this guy, he assumed she was 25. And her friend Maggie said, you know, I think there's something here. What if you just fudged your age on your resume? And what if you changed the years to make it seem like you were 25 because you look like you're still 25? And so she did it. The first job interview she went on, she fudged it and said she was 25, and she was hired. And she got a job in the book publishing industry. Now this was really inspiring for me because I'm writing my book at the same time, and in the show they've got examples of people pitching their books, and she's innovating and working with her friend. So everyone in her life thought that she was 25. She even had a boyfriend who was 25. Her best friends became 25-year-olds. And she had a new lease on life. That's what that identity instilled in her. She took chances, she took risks. She didn't think, as a 40-year-old, like, I'm not supposed to be doing this, right? She went for it. So that really inspired me, like, deeply, deeply. And when I had my mastectomy and my health journey last year, I got a new lease on life. And I said, Dani, you've been saying you want to travel the world for a couple years now, but you got comfortable. You have built a $25 million business that allows you to work from anywhere, but you've been in your apartment because of old wiring. So I said, why not now? Let's do this now. 25-year-old Dani, she would do that. She would start over. She would not be afraid of taking risks. And the perfect place to do that is in Bali. I thought about Eat, Pray, Love, and how Elizabeth Gilbert, the author, you know, she starts over after a divorce. She moves to Bali, right? So I really embodied that energy. Another part of it was vitality. When you're 25, you are healthy. You're like, let's go work out, let's go party, let's do all the things. You have a great work-life integration, right? And you know what it feels like to live. And what I want you to do is, after this video, check out my profile. I have a video that I was just watching before this from 2014. And I had just failed at my startup that I co-founded. I had no money. I was 6 figures in debt. And I moved back in with my mom in Redondo Beach. And here I was on the beach, walking along, doing a video. No mic, the wind is blowing. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing it ugly. And when I started this YouTube journey again this year, I said, what does it look like to do it ugly? What does it look like to show up and just be like, what if it doesn't need to be perfect? What if everything isn't perfectly scripted and we don't have the mic and all the fancy things? What if we did it ugly? Because that's what 25-year-old Dani would do. So what I want you to think about is, what identity do you want to embody in this season? Because that will lend to the city you want to go to. Guess what? The average age here in Bali from expats or people who have immigrated here is in their 20s. And so it helps reinforce that identity for me too. So the fourth and final reason I moved to Bali is because it fit my scorecard. So when I was thinking about where to move, I created a list of criteria. The first one was, I want to be in an environment that promotes well-being. The second is I want easy access to water. The third is I want a lower cost of living. And the fourth is I want a place with not so many distractions, where I don't know anyone or many people. And the way I knew that Bali was for me is because there was no comfort cushion here. Like, I don't know anyone here. I'm single, I'm moving here on my own. So there's nothing that's drawing me here and telling me, oh, it's gonna be safe, it's gonna be fine. That's how I knew it was for me, because it was the place that was pulling me out of my comfort zone and embracing that 25-year-old Dani that is ready to take the risks, prioritize her well-being. Now, another thing I did for my astrological folks is I asked ChatGPT, based on my astrological chart, where is a good location for me in this season? So what it did is it took into account the time and date of my birth and the location of my birth, which takes into account the location of the planets and the stars and longitude and latitude. And then I said, in this next season, I want to do deep work, creative work, and not be distracted. It gave me 3 cities. It said Cape Town in South Africa, Lisbon in Portugal, and Bali in Indonesia. And because I really have a thing for London, I said, what about London? And it said, you can go to London, but that has soulmate and networking energy. Like, that is where you go to meet your people, your person. So it will not lend to the no distractions. So that chart helped affirm what I knew in my gut was the right next place for me. So when you think about your scorecard, what are those non-negotiables? And then what are those nice to haves? Just like the list you make if you're looking for a new partner in life or a new partner in business, I want you to make a scorecard for your new partner in environment. So let me know in the comments, what season are you in? If you could sum it up in one word, what season are you in? And what city or cities are coming to mind that would help you embody that? And feel free to also share the new identity you're embracing if you're inspired to do that as well. And also, maybe the current city you live in is lending to this next identity, and maybe it's not. But maybe there are things you can do now from where you are that can help support you. So I can't wait to see what your words, your seasons, and your cities are in the comments. And if you want my support in this next season, maybe it's with money moves or physical moves. So you want help creating your scorecard or your next identity, or maybe making your first million and creating that business scorecard, or turning your identity into an offer that you can make money from online, then just check the comments, actually check the caption, and that's where you'll find a link where you can book a VIP session with me. And if you want more videos about me living in Bali, prioritizing well-being, biohacking for beginners, and longevity, or creating wealth, that holistic type of wealth, then make sure you subscribe, because I have a lot more videos coming your way.